Okay, so what happens if we have a negative exponent in the denominator? Okay, how do we handle that? So we said in the last video that 2 to the negative 3 is the same thing as 1 over 2 cubed. That's what we talked about last time. So if I have a negative exponent, we can move it to the denominator and make that exponent positive. And then if there's nothing else, we put a 1 in the numerator. Okay, so if I have 1 divided by 2 to the negative third, that is the same as 1 divided by 1 over 2 cubed, because these are equivalent. And then if we think back to how we did fractions, if I divide by something, fraction, I would multiply by the reciprocal. So I would multiply the reciprocal of 1 over 2 cubed is 2 cubed over 1. And again, 2 cubed over 1, anything divided by 1 is just really 2 cubed. So this is 1 times 2 cubed, which is 2 cubed. Okay. So notice, okay, when I started with 1 over 2 to the negative third, it really just becomes 2 to the third. And so what we're going to find is that when I have a negative exponent in the denominator, I can move it to the numerator and make that exponent positive. Okay, so if I have 5 over 6 to the negative second, kind of same thing. If you wanted to do it the long way, that is the same thing as 5 over 1 over 6 squared, okay, because 6 to the negative 2 is 1 over 6 squared. And then we can multiply by the reciprocal, which is 6 squared over 1. And then 6 squared or divided by 1 is just itself. So it's 5 times 6 squared. And so anytime you have a negative exponent, the easier way to do it is just negative exponents, if they're in the denominator, they move to the numerator and the exponent becomes positive. Okay, so this is the same idea. So this one might, I think, be easier if we actually simplify it. So 1 over 2 squared to the negative 3. We know that if we have an exponent to another exponent, a power to a power, we said we multiply those exponents. So 2 times negative 3. So I have 1 over 2 to the negative 6. And then that is the same thing we said is 2 to the positive 6. So if I have a negative 6 in the denominator, I move it to the top. Okay, the other way you can think about it is if I have a negative exponent, I can move it again to the numerator and I make that exponent positive. I'm not changing the 2 squared. Okay? Because I'm just moving this is raised to the negative to the numerator. And then we can again multiply our exponents 2 times 3 and we get 2 to the 6. Okay, I think it's easier to first multiply them and then move it in this case, but either way works. Okay, the hardest one will be if I have a fraction to a negative exponent. So if I have a fraction to a negative exponent, we would raise the 2 to the negative second and then the 3 to the negative second. And then we said if we have 2 to the negative second, what will happen is anytime to a negative exponent, we can move it to the denominator and make it positive. And anytime we have a negative exponent in the denominator, we can move it to the numerator and make the exponent positive. Okay, now this is just for exponents. If the numbers are negative, it doesn't change anything. It's just the exponent. So I think an easier way is if you have a negative exponent on a fraction, it is the same thing as you can flip the fraction and make the exponent positive. Okay, so anytime the exponent is negative and it's just the exponent on the entire thing, you can flip the fraction and make it positive. And that will give me the same as like 3 squared over 4 squared. So that's the easiest way. So if you have a negative in the denominator, that's the same thing as x to the m, like it becoming positive and you're moving to the numerator. And if you have a fraction to a negative exponent, you can flip the fraction and make the exponent positive, okay? And so that is our last rule. And so there is a summary of the rules if you want to try to write them down, but that's where we'll start in class. So we'll go over all the summary of the rules and then practice with them all together in class.